Morning, everyone.
Hey, Mike, what did Charlie Hewlett do wrong on that snap infraction?
Yeah. Again, the refs called it. We just got to abide by the rules. I don't think there was anything, too out of this world. But again, Charlie, professional, he said we'll get it right the next time. Obviously, we came back out the half and hit the 51-yarder. Nothing to, no infraction there. So able to get it corrected real quick.
Do you get the sense the Chiefs were avoiding Bigsby on the kickoffs, and how do you adjust in that?
I think it's just, one, it's the respect factor I guess Tank does have from his film in Jacksonville. There's always, you're always playing the chess game against the opposing team's coordinator, in terms of trying to get the ball into Tank's hands. But again, we don't want to get outside of our own realm right here. What I thought Tank did an awesome job was when he didn't get the ball, he showed great awareness and hustled as an off returner. He had some pretty big blocks on that off returner. They were sending their one pretty hot right there and able to get that first kickoff. He was able to get a good chunk on their safety right there. So again, it's just having the game come to him more than anything else.
If that ends up being a trend, the ball going away from him, are there ways to capitalize on the predictability in that?
Yeah, I mean, 2 weeks in, you really can't get a predictability on where the opposing kicker is going to kick it. Obviously, with this new kickoff, hopefully, as the season goes on, you can now get a sense on where they're trying to kick, whether it's the steps of the kicker, his alignment. If they have a kick side or a backside on their kickoff coverage team, that goes into us, game planning more than anything else. So I always think the first month is a little bit of a crapshoot in terms of what is the other team trying to do, but also having the opportunity with other off returners, whether that be John Mechie, whether that be Will Shipley, other type of returners to make some plays. And again, it's not all on the returners. The other 10 guys being able to stop the coverage team and give us some running lanes for our returners.
Under perfect conditions, what do you think Jake's range is, and do you think that league records are about to be shattered over and over again in this league?
Yeah, I mean, Jake obviously has a couple 61-yarders under his belt. With him, the confidence is back, and if it was a perfect day, no wind or you're in a dome, maybe you could stretch it, even further than that 61-yarder. Obviously, you saw Aubrey hit that 64-yarder to send into overtime. So, when it comes to these kickers, around the league nowadays, I think they are pushing the envelope to get, those long kick field goals, whether it's end of half, end of game situation. So, if I were to guess, possibly there's going to be some new records being held out there from kickers around the league.
Why is the confidence back for Jake?
I guess you guys ask Jake that question. For me, it's never wavered from a coordinator standpoint because I've just been around him for so long. All the work he puts in, on field 3 when offense and defense is going on, working with Braden, working with Charlie to go out there and execute when our numbers are called. And, he's shown time and time again in big situations that he comes up clutch for the team.
He was 1 for 7 from 50 and out last year, and he's 3 for 3 already and the one that he made was a 50. He's made 2 58s already. It seems like something has changed.
Yeah, and you could dive into every 50 kick from last year, but that's the great thing about now. I'm not too worried about what last year's stats are. We're worried about this year's stats, and him going 3 for 3 thus far is great confidence, not for us, but also for the offense, knowing that if something does stall out right there, we could possibly get 3 points on the board.
Why is it that kickers in general around the league are making longer kicks nowadays?
I guess that's just the evolution of the kicker. They're just getting better and better, just like if the end, they keep getting better and better. It's just the opportunity for them to get stronger as the year goes on, working their technique. Still pretty warm out there, so the ball's going to travel a little bit better. In Kansas City, it was still pretty mild, so that ball's going to travel a little bit more. But I think just kickers in general, players in general, it's the whole adage, the bigger, faster, stronger. I think kickers are having better, leg speed to get through the ball. And just taking advantage of it.
The new rules with the kicker balls, is that playing a role too, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it possibly can. Special teams coaches across the league, been trying to get that rule passed, and it was able to pass this year, and I think they're seeing some success with it. But as much as all these big kicks are going in, you can still see there are some 40-yarders that are being missed, getting doinked off. I mean, last night Chase McLaughlin, one of the better kickers, missed one right there. So again, I don't think it has to do a lot with the ball. Does it help? Possibly, but I think it's just these kickers getting better and better.
Cam Latu, with Cam Latu, Nick mentioned his size and physicality as a blocker. What does he add to your units when he's out there?
Yeah, he provides some physicality, some speed also. He flashed a little bit in the last game. Obviously, the punt return, he got around the opposing punter's foot with his physicality going through the wing right there. He did a great job for us on kickoff return, blocking. And it's kudos to Cam. It's a pretty cool story. He's drafted in San Francisco, 3rd round, but Sunday was his first ever regular season game. Just being able to bounce around the league, but still keep at it and show to us that he could be an added force for us is really cool for Cam, and more respect to Cam to keep going on with that.
Seems like with the new rules that more teams kicking off or kind of coffin cornering it or precision with that. How have you noticed that adjustment and receiving that? And it seems like it's way too much range for one guy to be back there and play center field as a kickoff returner. What do you think about that adjustment this year?
Yeah, I think it's a case-by-case study. Can your kicker do that? At times it's a risk-reward situation. You see a couple of them that don't get into the landing zone. Some of them, they're trying to be so precise with it, and they get a little juiced up and the ball travels into the end zone. I think from our standpoint, Jake's doing an unbelievable job, just kind of moving it around. The kickoff coverage team is doing a really good job of just being physical and not allowing any creases right there. So I think it's just really a case-by-case study, who your personnel is, who your kicker is, can they get it to a corner, but also you don't want to press them for something they're not comfortable with. That's when you get them, not playing at a full speed thing and they're pressing, ball goes out of bounds, ball doesn't get into the landing zone. But for me personally, for my coaching style is what do the players do well, and can we converge on that, whether it's placing it in the corner or putting at a certain yard line, letting our coverage go.
To follow up on the kicking question, I've read that it can add distance to it, but I haven't seen why. I'm curious if you know the why to that.
Yeah, I mean, just with this new rule, prior to it, you would get new kicking balls and you only had a certain amount of time to work them in. Now you're able to work them in and get them to that feel that the kickers like. Very similar to what a quarterback ball would be. They get to work all week with it, whatever the quarterback has to feel with it. So now you get that whole week to work with the ball, give them the amount of balls the refs need right there. So it's more just a feel, when you could deep dive on how kicking balls are made. There's a film on it, so you're trying to get that off and allow it to be more of a smoother texture than the rigid, bumpy feel that a quarterback ball has. That's why you see in hurricane situations, when it's a kicking ball, a quarterback ball, the ball doesn't travel as well. It's not as smooth as a regular kicking ball.
I'm sorry. So you get the whole week to prepare the ball, or is there an infinite amount of time on it?
There's a whole process of it, but it's a lot longer now than the hour you get before on game day.
A few games this weekend shifted based on special teams mistakes. Pittsburgh, Denver. I know your line's always you're focused on your building, but how much time do you spend looking at what happens elsewhere and talking to the players about it? I actually love Mondays. One, you get to go over the game, but I watch every special teams play from around the league for my own sake, because I get to watch different situations. I get to see what the feel is around the league. But also when it comes to Saturday, you've got your game plan in. You keep these guys intrigued by what their peers are doing and what things we can learn off of. So Mondays are one of my favorite days because I get to watch all that and learn off of it. One, it helps myself as a coach, with different, nuances of things, and a friendly reminder to the fellas what's going on around the league with their peers that they can learn off of. Are those situations you've discussed in the preseason?
Yeah, I try to, I've got a Rolodex from 2016 of, I call them POWs, play of the weeks, that I have them all kind of categorized to, bring back up if it does happen. Hey, do you have this? Boom, boom, boom. I can show these guys that, hey, this can happen. We just got to be ready for when it presents itself. And it may never present itself, but you always want to be ready for it.
Braden Mann seems to have increased what he's been doing. Why do you think? What's the explanation for what he's been able to do so far this year?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where, when he first got here in 23, getting used to him more than anything else. So you were still figuring yourself out. Last year, he did an unbelievable job for us. I think the last 2 years, he's kind of put himself up in Eagles, record books for the net and everything. But this year, I think it's your third year in the system. You're gonna be more comfortable. No different than, say, JD on at defensive line. Like, you're just more comfortable with your surroundings around it. We've always known Braden's a very good kicker. a punter. You're not drafted in the 5th round for no reason, 6th round, whatever it was when he was with the Jets. So being able to do that and just him being himself, I try to, tell him, be who you are, and we'll get the coverage team around. It also helps that you got guys like Keely Ringo, Sidney Brown, Jeremiah Trotter as your coverage units. Will Shipley when he's out there to help mitigate that, but he's doing an unbelievable job, and he works at it. It's not by luck or surprise. He works at it time in and time out throughout the day, and when he comes in tomorrow, he'll probably be out there with a 3-hour punting session getting ready for this week because the Rams have a good returner in Xavier Smith, so we got to be able to make sure we mitigate any big returns against us this week.
Okay. Good. Thank you.